My father kicked me out of the house that I bought myself and that I was maintaining, so I told him I would stop paying the bills. He slapped me and said it was my duty to support him. Dad, no one hits me. My name is Daniel. I'm 28 years old, and until a week ago I lived in a house I bought with my own sweat. I didn't inherit anything, I didn't win the lottery, and I didn't get help from anyone. Every brick in that house carries my effort. Overtime at the factory, weekends without rest, and years of saving. Every last penny. It was my pride, my refuge, but now I'm sleeping on my friend Louise's couch with a bag of clothes as a pillow because my own father kicked me out of my house. Yes, my house, and the worst part, he slapped me when I told him I wouldn't keep paying his bills. He looked at me with those cold eyes and said, "It's your obligation to support me. Nobody hits me." It all began 3 years ago when my mom passed away. She was the glue of the family, the one who calmed things down when my dad got grumpy or demanding. He was always a tough man, one of those who thinks the world owes him something just for existing. When she was gone, he crumbled inside, but instead of seeking help or trying to move on, he decided that I would be his crutch. I was 25 then, living in a small apartment, just starting to save for something better, but one day he showed up with a suitcase and told me he was staying with me because he couldn't be alone. I didn't know how to say no. He was my dad. What was I going to do? The problem was it wasn't temporary. He settled in, as if the place was his. At first I understood he was mourning just like me, but then he started asking me for money for his things: cigarettes, beers, bets at the bar on the corner. "Aren't you going to help your old man?" he would say when I came home exhausted from work. I'd give him something because I felt sorry for him, but he kept asking for more. When I told him I couldn't give him so much anymore, he got furious. "You're selfish, after everything I did for you," he shouted. I didn't know what to say. I barely remembered what he had done for me other than yelling at me as a child for not getting good grades, so I decided to take a big step and bought the house. It was a modest 2-story place with a small yard and walls that needed painting, but it was mine. I signed the papers with the bank, made the down payments with my savings, and moved in, excited to start over. I thought it would be my independence, my space, but my dad followed me like a shadow, saying, "You're not going to leave me in that dump now that you have this, right?" And again, out of pity and that guilt I carried, I told him he could stay with me. The first months weren't so bad. He spent the day watching TV while I worked 12-hour shifts to pay for the mortgage, electricity, water, everything, but little by little he started to act like the house was his, moving my things around, inviting his friends from the bar over for beers in my living room. If I said anything, he would look at me like I was the intruder. "Relax, kid, this is family," he'd say. Family for him was me paying for everything while he didn't lift a finger. A month ago things exploded. I came home one Friday with my paycheck, tired, but happy because I was finally caught up with the bills. My plan was to relax, maybe order pizza, and watch a movie, but my dad was waiting for me in the kitchen with a look I recognized. He wanted something. "Give me 500, he said bluntly. "For what?" I asked, already imagining the answer. "For the bar. I owe them for some rounds." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe it. "Seriously, Dad, I'm killing myself to pay for this house, and you want me to give you money for drinks?" He turned red as if I had insulted him. "Don't talk to me like that. I'm your father. You owe me respect." Tired of his blackmail, I told him the truth. "If you need me that much, keep your threats, but I'm not paying any more bills." I didn't see what happened next coming. His hand flew toward my face so fast I couldn't dodge it. The slap made me step back, my ear buzzing and my cheek burning. I stood frozen looking at him, while he pointed a finger at me. "You don't talk to me like that, Daniel. It's your obligation to support me. It always has been." That broke something inside me. "Nobody hits me." I wanted to respond, to say everything I had kept quiet for years, but he wouldn't let me get out of my house. He yelled as if he were the owner of it. "If you're not going to support me, I don't want you here." He was so blinded by rage that he didn't care that the house was in my name and that I paid every damn penny. He shoved me toward the door, nearly knocking me down. "Get out," he kept screaming. I had no choice. I grabbed my jacket, my phone, and the car keys with shaking hands. "This isn't over," I said with a shaky but firm voice. "That house is mine, and you know it." He laughed mockingly, saying, "Let's see how you take it from me, useless." I slammed the door behind me as I walked toward the garage. I felt anger, pain, and a kind of emptiness I couldn't explain. My own father had kicked me out of my house, my own house. I ended up at Lewis's place, my friend from the factory. I knocked on his door at 11 p.m. and he opened it without asking too many questions. "What happened, brother?" he asked when he saw my red face and watery eyes. "My dad kicked me out," I said, still in disbelief. "Stay as long as you want," he responded, handing me a blanket. That night, I couldn't sleep, as stared at the ceiling thinking about how much my life had twisted. My dad was probably in my house drinking beer with his friends while I was on a borrowed couch, but amidst all that frustration something ignited in me. I wasn't going to let this end like this. That house was legally mine, and he had no right to take it from me. I was going to fight for what belonged to me. I didn't know how, but this was just beginning. I woke up on Lewis's sofa with a sore neck that felt like an extra punishment. The blanket was tangled around my legs, and the sun was already coming in through the window, reminding me that I hadn't slept a wink until 4 a.m. Everything that happened the night before kept spinning in my head. My dad kicking me out of my house, the slap on my face, his shouts saying it was my obligation to support him. I got up slowly, my body heavy, and looked in the bathroom mirror. I still had a reddish mark on my cheek that wasn't going to be easy to forget. Luis was already in the kitchen making coffee. "You look like you got hit by a truck," he said while handing me a cup. "Kind of," I replied, sitting in a chair that creaked under my weight. I told him everything, how my dad had asked me for money again, how it exploded, and how I ended up on the street after he kicked me out like I was a stranger. Luis listened without interrupting, just shaking his head from time to time. When I finished, he stayed quiet for a moment, and then said, What are you going to do? That house is yours, Daniel, you can't let him steal it from you like that. He was right, but I didn't know where to start. I have no idea. I admitted legally the house is in my name, but he's inside, and I don't think he'll leave just because I asked him to. Luis took a sip of coffee and scratched his beard. Then don't ask him, make him leave. Go to the bank, to the police, to a lawyer. I don't know, but don't let him get away with it. His words clicked. I had always let my dad do things his way, but this time was different. This time I wasn't going to give in. I spent the morning thinking about my options. I didn't have much money saved after paying the mortgage and the bills, but I had the house papers, the contract, the deeds, everything stored in a folder in my car. That was my weapon. My dad could shout all he wanted, but legally he had nothing to claim. I decided to start there. I told Luis I was going to be out for a while, and I got in the car headed to the bank. I wanted to check my mortgage situation and see if there was any way to use that to my advantage. At the bank, a friendly woman named Clara assisted me. After a wait that felt eternal, I explained everything as calmly as I could, that I was the owner who paid for everything, but my dad had kicked me out and was staying in the house. She reviewed my account and the documents I brought. Look, Mr. Daniel, she said, after a while the mortgage is in your name and you've been paying on time. No one else has legal rights over the property as long as there's no change in the deeds. If someone is occupying your house without your permission, that's a problem you can resolve with the authorities. The authorities, like the police? I asked. Clara nodded. Yes, you can report it as a legal occupation, but I recommend you speak with a lawyer first to make sure everything is clear and there are no issues later. I left the bank with a mix of hope and nerves. The idea of involving the police against my own dad was tying my stomach in knots, but what other option did I have? He wasn't going to leave voluntarily. I knew that. On the way to Lewis's, I stopped at a small store to buy something to eat. While paying, my phone vibrated. It was a message from my dad. Bring money if you want to come back. The electricity got cut off and I'm not staying in the dark because of you. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Seriously, he kicked me out and expected me to keep paying? I didn't reply. I turned off my phone and kept driving, my head boiling. That just made me want to fight more. When I got to Lewis's, he was watching TV. I told him about the bank visit and my dad's message. What a nerve that old man has. He laughed. He doesn't understand that you're not sending him free checks anymore. He's going to find out, I said, more determined than ever. We spent the rest of the afternoon looking for lawyers online. We found one who offered free consultations and was nearby. I called and they scheduled an appointment for the next day. Finally, I felt like I was doing something and not just crying about my luck. That night, as I tried to sleep on the couch, I thought about how I had come to this. I always wanted to help my dad, but I never imagined I would see myself as his ATM. I recalled the times he yelled at me as a kid, the times he told me I was useless, and how now with something of mine he was trying to take it away from me. It hurt, but it also gave me strength. I wouldn't let him win this time. The next day I got up early and put on my best clothes, a decent shirt and some clean jeans. I wanted to look serious for the lawyer. I arrived at the office, a small place with white walls and a desk full of papers. The lawyer, a skinny man with glasses named Don Miguel, listened intently as I told him the whole story. When I finished, he adjusted his glass and said, "This is simple, Daniel. The house is yours. You have the documents, and he has no legal right to it. We can start with a formal notice for him to vacate. If he doesn't leave, we can go to the police and, if necessary, a judge." But there was something he needed me to decide. "Are you willing to take this all the way?" I stayed silent for a second. He was my dad, the man who raised me, even if it was in his way, but he was also the man who kicked me out of my house and hit me for not giving him money. "Yes," I finally said, "I'm going all the way." Don Miguel smiled a bit. "Good, then let's get started." He handed me a sheet of paper with small print and a bunch of legal terms I didn't fully understand. "This is a formal eviction notice," he explained. "It gives your father 15 days to leave the house voluntarily. If he doesn't, we can request a court order and have him removed with the police." I read the paper quickly. My name was there as the owner, along with a house address and a clear warning my dad had to leave or he would face legal consequences. I signed with a slightly trembling hand. It was real. It was happening. "How does he receive this?" I asked as I handed the paper back. "We'll send it with a certified messenger," said Don Miguel. "Someone will deliver it in person, and he has to sign to prove he received it. If he's not there or refuses it, still considered notified." I nodded, imagining my dad's face when he read it. I knew he wouldn't take it well, but I didn't care anymore. He had crossed a line by kicking me out, and now he had to face the consequences. I walked out of there with the notice we were going to send to my dad. I didn't know how he would react, but there was no turning back. That house was mine, and he was going to have to accept it whether he liked it or not. As I drove back to Lewis's, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. For the first time I was fighting for myself, and I wasn't going to stop. Part of me wanted to go to the house and confront him myself, but I knew that would only make things worse. I had to play this with a cool head, as Don Miguel said, so I went back to Lewis's and waited. The messenger was going to deliver the paper that same afternoon, and there was nothing else to do until my dad reacted. That night Luis and I were watching a bad movie on television when my phone vibrated again. It was an unknown number. I answered, and on the other side I heard my dad's slurred voice. "What the hell is this, Daniel?" he yelled without greeting me. "A paper saying I have to leave my own house. Are you crazy?" I got up from the couch and went out into the hallway so Louise wouldn't have vetoed the drama. "It's not your house, Dad, it's mine. I bought it, I pay for it. You kicked me out. Remember, this is what happens when you cross that line." He laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was filled with poison. "You're not going to kick me out, kid. This house is as much mine as it is yours after everything I did for you. Do you think a little piece of paper is going to scare me?" "Try it." I was trembling with anger, but I Forced myself to stay calm. It's not a little piece of paper. Dad, you have 15 days to leave or the police will take you out. You decide. There was a long silence on the other side, and then he said, "You're a traitor. A son never does this to his father." And he hung up that night. As I tried to sleep, I thought about my mom. She always told me to be strong, but also to take care of the family. I wondered what she would say if she saw me now fighting with my dad over a house. She'd probably be sad, but I also think she would understand this wasn't just about the house, it was about everything he had taken from me, my peace, me effort, my dignity, and I wasn't going to let it slide. The following days were tense. I didn't hear from my dad again, but every time my phone rang I prepared for another shouting match. Don Miguel called me on Friday to confirm that the notice had been delivered and signed. "Now we just wait," he said. "If he doesn't leave, we move to the next step." I nodded even though he couldn't see me. "Thanks, Don Miguel, we'll keep going." I hung up and looked out the window at Lewis's place. There were 12 days left, 12 days for my dad to decide whether he would leave easily or forcefully, and something told me it wouldn't be easily. I'll tell you what happened when the day came. Update 1. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your comments and supportive messages. Many were saying my dad was a savage, and you're right. The 15 days flew by like lightning, and at the same time felt like an eternity. Every morning, I woke up with the same knot in my stomach, waiting for some signal from my dad, a call, a message, something that said he was going to leave my house without a fight, but nothing, just silence. Don Miguel had told me that wasn't a good sign if he doesn't leave by today. Tomorrow we ask for a court order, he explained over the phone the night before. Get ready, Daniel, it can get tough. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. I was ready, or at least that's what I wanted to believe. It was Wednesday, the day the deadline marked. I got up from the couch at Lewis's place before the sun came up, my nerves on edge. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours. I put on an old shirt and some jeans, but my hands were shaking as I buttoned it up. Luis was already awake, drinking coffee in the kitchen. "Today's the day, right?" he said, looking at me seriously. "Yes," I replied, my voice. "I'm going to see if he's gone." He put the cup down on the table and came closer. "Don't go alone. If that old man is as crazy as you say, he could do anything." He hesitated for a second, but then nodded. "Let's go together." Then we drove in silence to my place. The sky was gray, as if it knew what was coming. I parked the car a block away from the house and walked the rest of the way. When we reached the corner, I stopped dead in my tracks. The living room light was on and I could hear loud music from outside. My heart sank. He hadn't left. He was there, acting like the notice didn't matter. "Damn it," I muttered. Louise put a hand on my shoulder. "Stay calm, brother. Let's see what happens." We approached slowly. The front door was ajar, and the smell of stale beer poured out like a cloud. I looked through the window and saw my dad sitting on my couch with a bottle in his hand, laughing with Raul and another guy I didn't recognize. There were cans all over the floor, and one of my lamps was broken in a corner. My house, my refuge, looked like a dump. Rage rose in my throat like acid. "That son of a," I started to say, but Luis grabbed my arm. "Don't go in like that, Daniel. Call the lawyer." First I wanted to ignore him, to go in and scream him out, but I knew he was right. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands and dialed Don Miguel. "He didn't leave," I said as soon as he picked up. "He's in the house drinking like nothing's wrong." Don Miguel didn't sound surprised. I figured it would be like this. "Stay there. I'm coming with the police. I have the order ready. I just need to confirm that he didn't comply." I hung up and looked at Luis. "They're coming with the police." He nodded, but didn't say anything. We both knew this was going to blow up. We waited in the corner, hidden behind a tree. Every minute felt like a stab. I watched the shadows move inside my house, heard the laughter, and every sound hurt more. That house was everything I had built, and my dad was trampling it like it meant nothing. I remembered the nights I spent painting those walls, the times I went without food to pay the bills, and now he was there mocking me. I wanted to cry, scream, break something, but I stayed still, teeth clenched, waiting. Half an hour later a black car arrived, followed by a patrol. Don Miguel got out of the first car with his briefcase in hand, and 2 police officers stepped out of the second. I rushed over. "That's him," I said, pointing at the house. Don Miguel looked at me seriously. "Daniel, stay back, we'll handle this." I nodded, but my feet didn't want to move. Luis pulled me aside while the police advanced with Don Miguel toward the door. One of the officers knocked hard. "Open the door, sir, it's the police." The music stopped abruptly, and for a moment everything was silent. Then I heard my dad's deep, furious voice. "What the hell do you want?" Don Miguel spoke clearly. "Sir, I'm the lawyer for Daniel Ramirez, the owner of this property. You have an eviction notice. If you don't come out now, we will force your removal." There was a noise of things falling, and then my dad burst through the door. I saw him standing in the frame, red-faced with wild eyes. Raul and the other guy were behind him, looking unsure. "What's going on here?" my dad shouted when he saw me. "You sent the police on me like I am a thief. I'm your father." His voice trembled, but not from fear, pure rage. I stayed frozen, my chest tight. "You kicked me out, Dad," I said, my voice coming out weaker than I wanted. "That house is mine, and you have no right to stay." He took a step toward me, but one of the police officers stopped him with a hand. "Sir, calm down, or we'll handcuff you." My dad turned to the officer as if he were going to hit him, but stopped himself. "This is treachery," he shouted, looking back at me. "After everything I did for you, you do this to me." Tears burned my eyes, but I didn't let them out. "What you did was kick me out of my house," I replied. "I paid for everything here, and you destroyed it." Don Miguel intervened. "So you have 5 minutes to leave with your things, otherwise we'll remove you." My dad let out a bitter laugh. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, turning around as if that were the end, but the police didn't hesitate. They followed him inside, and the next thing I saw was Raul and the other guy rushing out with their hands up. Then I heard my dad screaming as they dragged him outside. "Let me go, this is my house. Daniel, you're going to pay for this." He was hauled out, handcuffed, kicking and shouting, his eyes fixed on me, filled with hatred, and for a second I felt the ground open beneath my feet. He was my dad, the man who carried me when I was a child, and now he was there like an enemy. The police put him in the patrol car, and Don Miguel approached me. "It's done, Daniel, the house is yours again." But I didn't feel victorious. I felt an emptiness crushing me. I walked in slowly. The place was wrecked, broken dishes, trash everywhere, my things strewn around like they didn't matter. I dropped onto the couch with my head in my hands and finally let the tears fall. Louise sat next to me in silence. I didn't know if I had won or lost, but one thing was certain: nothing would be the same again. Update too high. I know it's been months since my last update, but something happened that scared me a lot. 5 days had passed since the police removed my dad from my house, and I was still trying to regain some peace. The house was somewhat in order. I had swept the trash, painted the walls, and changed the lock on the door. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine again. I slept poorly, always with one eye open, waiting for something to happen. Louise came by sometimes to keep me company, but that night I was alone watching TV to keep my mind off things. It was 11 at night when a crash made me jump from the couch. The glass in the living room window shattered into 1,000 pieces, and something heavy fell to the ground with a thud. I froze for a second, my heart pounding in my ears, before I ran to see what it was. A brick. There among the broken glass lay a red brick, and taped to it was a crumpled piece of paper. I picked it up with trembling hands and opened it. The words were scribbled in black ink and large jagged letters: "You'll pay for this, traitor." My breath caught in my throat. I looked through the broken window, but the street was dark and I could only hear the wind and the pounding of my own heart. I grabbed the bat I had nearby and went out to the yard looking for any sign of him. I knew it was my dad. No one else would hate me enough to do this. But there was no one, no footsteps, no shadows, nothing. I went back inside with the paper still in my hand and sat on the couch staring at that threat as if it could ignite by itself. "You'll pay for this, traitor." The words sank into my mind, and for a moment I felt like fear was going to drown me. I called Luis and told him what happened, my voice shaking. "I'm coming over," he said, but I asked him not to come. I didn't want to drag him into this mess again. Then I called the police and reported what had happened. They came quickly, took pictures of the brick and the paper, and told me they would patrol the area, but their faces told me what I already knew: they weren't going to find my dad unless he wanted to be found. "If anything else happens, call us," said one of the officers before leaving. I nodded, but didn't say anything. I was tired of waiting for the next blow. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed with the bat beside me, watching the broken window that I had covered with plastic. Every noise made me jump, every shadow looked like him, but nothing else happened. The following days were a hell of nerves. I checked the street every hour, slept with a light on, and kept my phone in my hand like it was a weapon. I waited for another brick, a scream, something, but nothing came. Silence returned, and this time it wasn't just in the house, it was in my life. Weeks passed, then months, and I never heard from my dad again. Nobody saw him at the bar, nobody mentioned him. It was like he had vanished. Don Miguel called me one day to tell me that they had dropped the minor charges against my dad because they couldn't find him. To notify him he probably left the city, he said. I didn't reply. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or sad. That brick was the last scare, the last echo of his rage, and then nothing. Over time, I fixed the window, finished painting the house, and bought new furniture. I went back to work at the factory, saved a bit, and even started hanging out with friends again. The house stopped being a cage and became something truly mine. But I never forgot that night, the paper on the brick, or my dad's face yelling at me as he was taken away in handcuffs. He was my father, and I lost him forever. I don't know if I paid for something like he said. I just know that I moved on. Subscribe for more daily stories.